Good afternoon. So in our books in class, one of the first ones is so you want to talk about race, and in chapter 2 it says the truth is you don't have to be racist to be part of a racist system. Now the question was, what examples of critical race theory can you think of in chapter 6 of The Hate You Give? Well, one of the first ones that kind of touches on that quote from you, so you want to talk about race, is the role of systematic racism. Now, that quote was saying you personally don't have to be racist to be part of a racist system, okay? Because it's saying that society has structures in place that are inherently racist. So in chapter 6, it says here, Star, she struggles with the ways that racism works. In particular, interactions between black and communities and law enforcement. Obviously her friend Khalil was shot innocently, wrongly, and he was innocent. And that is just one example of systematic racism. If you look it up, and the numbers are crazy. Black people are killed by the thousands by law enforcement every single year. So, I think that's definitely something to be aware of. And that's just one example of how systematic racism. Not to mention stuff being put into the community, such as cocaine and drugs, and systems overrun with poverty, which most likely have black people in the community. And this is not in the book, but there is a big conspiracy. I don't know how much of a conspiracy it is, that cocaine and other drugs were systematically placed by law enforcement in these high poverty areas, so they could get hooked on and spend all their money on there and be put in jail. Now, example 2 is intersectionality. We all know that this is very real, and the concept of intersectionality is that individuals experience overlapping forms of oppression, of privilege, and race, gender, class, and a few more categories. And then Starred navigates multiple identities. She's a girl in a predominantly white school, which is private. Not to mention that it's a form of systematic racism in itself. A private school, most black people are going to be systematically placed in high poverty areas, and they can't afford to go to these schools. That's kind of the whole reason private schools exist nowadays, because when Brown versus Board of Education happened, it was public schools were integrated. Private schools could still be segregated if they wanted to, because they were a private school. So that in itself is systematic racism. So going to intersectionality, she goes to a white school. She lives in a poor neighborhood at the same time, and she's the daughter of an activist, which does not match very well at all with the school she goes to. And she thinks that these intersecting identities in her life is making her life very difficult. And especially with Khalil's death, she doesn't know what side to choose. She doesn't know whether to stick up for a friend or to be quiet and be one of the good ones, quote unquote. And these experiences that she has reveal the intersectionality of her identity, and impacts how she acts around others, and how she is treated in different contexts around different groups of people. So I think it goes along with the critical race theory very well, because it touches on systematic racism and intersectionality, and knowing the complexity of one's identity, especially when you're in and around other people. So I definitely think that chapter 6 hits on this quite a bit if you read along and see these examples.